Hey everybody, it's GoblinX. Welcome back to another Magic Arena workshop video. Today's workshop is the We Are Many workshop. This is an event that's completely free where you get to use pre-constructed decks made by Wizards of the Coast employees with special rules, special setups, and in this event, the We Are Many event, there is no restriction on the number of cards that they've put into these decks. So each of these decks has a key card that there's 13 or more copies of in the decks. The key cards are all on the cover artwork, on the deck boxes. And first we have Best Fiends. 15 copies of Archfiend's Vessel. So Archfiend's Vessel is a 1/1 lifelinker. If it enters the battlefield from your graveyard or you cast it from your graveyard, you can exile it and make a 5/5 black demon with flying. So this deck, with all those copies of Archfiend's Vessels, you can use their lifelink to get a bunch of counters on Bloodthirsty Aerialists, or you can sacrifice them or trade them off early to bring them back from the grave with Call of the Death Dweller, which will bring 2 of them back off of this one card, which will net you 2 5/5 flying demons. So kind of a ritualistic, sacrificial reanimation deck there. Very interesting. Then you have Inventory Management, debatably the best of these decks. Just because this one's the most consistent, you've got 15 copies of Frantic Inventory, which is a 2-mana instant. You draw a card, then draw cards equal to the number of Frantic Inventories in your graveyard. So you're just drawing cards all over the place with this deck. You're just drawing millions and millions of cards, and the win condition, what are you going to do by drawing all those cards? You're going to spit out 8/8s with Ominous Seas. So whenever you draw a card, you put a counter on this. When it has 8 counters on it, you can remove them to plop out an 8/8 Kraken, and you have 7 copies of this in the deck, so you could even have multiples of this enchantment on the board to spit out multiple Krakens every time you draw 8 cards. You've got Goblin Electromancers to make your inventories cheaper, Volcanic Salvos to help you clear your opponent's board after you've got 8/8s out, and Selective Snare, which is really good against all of the decks, because all of them except the blue-red deck have a certain creature that there's 13 or more copies of. As we saw with the Reanimation deck, that's 15 Archfiend's Vessels, so you could use this to return the Archfiend's Vessels to their hands, or, better yet, the 5/5 demons that get created from it. And then, obviously, when we show off the next 2 decks, you'll be able to really easily tell what creatures you'd want to bounce with this against them. Next, you have Machinations. This is an artifact deck. This is the one that I'm going to be playing in this video, just because I really like artifact decks. First of all, you have Umori as the companion, the only one with a companion. However, I feel like these games in general are going to go insanely fast and be doing super degenerate stuff, so I doubt Umori is going to come into play too often. But you can use this to make all your artifacts cheaper, since everything in the deck is an artifact. The main game plan is the 13 Steel Overseers in this deck. Obviously, they will all put a +1/+1 counter on each artifact creature you control, so they'll put counters on each other, so the more you accumulate, the more counters you're getting every single turn. You've got 6 Corridor Monitors to untap them, you've got 8 Palladium Mirrors to get a bunch of mana, plus you can untap them with Corridor Monitors. You got 4 Meteor Golems to help remove your opponent's threats, and 5 copies of the Great Henge. This lets you draw a card whenever one of your non-token creatures enters the battlefield, as well as gaining some life every turn. So, probably going to be using the artifact deck in this video just because I really like artifact stuff. And last but certainly not least, for you lovers of cycling decks, we have Spin Cycle with 16 Flourishing Foxes. Yes, your Ikoria Draft Dream deck has happened. You've somehow got 16 Flourishing Foxes and 8 Valiant Rescuers. Not much more needs to be said about this deck. I think it's pretty obvious the synergies there. 2 mana, 3/1 that spits out a 1/1 every time you cycle, and 16 1/1s that get a +1/+1 counter every time you cycle, plus both those cards can cycle. So very, very powerful cycling synergies in this deck. You also have the Ozolith, so when your Flourishing Foxes die, you get to put all their +1/+1 counters on the Ozolith, and then move them to another creature at the beginning of combat. You've got Fully Grown to give your gigantic foxes trample to make sure you can actually break through and win the game, and you've got 5 Luminous Broodmoths just for good measure, because it's a busted mythic rare. So this is a pretty crazy workshop. I'm very excited to see this. Probably the craziest workshop we've had in a while. Most of them recently have just been actual regular formats, just with special decks built. We obviously had the Brawl workshop of all the core set Planeswalkers, and then we had Cats versus Dogs. Now we've got We Are Many. This seems like a pretty crazy workshop. In this video, I'm going to go ahead and try out the Machinations deck until I get a win with it, and I may have to do another one of these workshops tomorrow. We will certainly see. So I'm going to play till I get the Haversack of Favor. Let's see what kind of crazy shenanigans we can get into. Here we are in round 1. We've got 3 forests with a corridor monitor in hand, but the vast majority of this deck is artifact cards, mostly colorless, so we can cast anything else. I don't think we need to mulligan this. I would rather keep this hand. And we draw into the breeding pool, so we can play that tapped. And now we have the mana for anything in our hand. We are playing against the blue-red deck, so we'll have to see how powerful it does end up being. Again, I did see the Magic Arena Reddit post about this event. And that is when I was like, oh, better boot up Arena and try this out. And a lot of people in there were saying that the blue-red deck is just the strongest, just for the frantic inventory consistency with all that card draw. Double Electromancer is going to be pretty intense. All of their instants and sorceries costing 2 less now, so Selective Snare could bounce 2 things for only a single blue mana. I think I want to just drop another Steel Overseer. I think I want to try to focus on getting these as big as possible, as fast as possible, so I could potentially even beat their 8/8s if they start spitting those out. So now they're drawing 2 cards off Frantic Inventory, now they're drawing 3. Next one they cast will be 4 cards for 1 blue mana. They do have to get, there we go, they have to get an Ominous Seas out for it to be that threatening though, but they do have the Ominous Seas. All they have to do is cast 2 copies of Frantic Inventory to spit out an 8/8 now, because it'll be 4 cards drawn off the first and 5 off the second. Pretty intense. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hold control here, that way I can have my Corridor Monitor's effect go on the stack before I choose to untap Steel Overseer. So I'm going to say that I want to untap Steel Overseer, and before this resolves, I will tap it to get counters on all 3 of these. And now it'll untap. We'll play another land. And if I tap these, I can drop the Great Henge out. Ooh, actually no. Great Henge is focused on the greatest power among creatures you control, not the total power, so I should have waited there. But their 8/8 is not going to have haste, so I don't need to have blockers up anyway. But it did misread the card. I have not actually played with the Great Henge that much. Weirdly enough, because that is a very popular Brawl card. Are they out of Frantic Inventories? That'd be kind of crazy. It is an instant though, so they could be choosing to wait to do it until my end step, because that way if I try to attack with anything, it doesn't work out for me. I think I will drop the Great Henge into a Palladium Mirror now, so I can draw a card off the mirror. Next turn I can grab Umori and cast him. Right, we got double Steel Overseer taps. That's still not going to be quite to the power and toughness of an 8/8, so it's still probably not worth attacking. And yep, they do have the Frantic Inventory. I think it's pretty impossible for them not to just always have a Frantic Inventory. I suppose we could be on the game plan of trying to get them to mill out. Unfortunately, our blockers are only going to be 7 sevens, at least the Overseers. The Steel Monitor will have 9 toughness, so or the Corridor Monitor will have 9 toughness, so at least Corridor Monitor gets to block something. But it looks like we're about to just get swarmed out by these 8/8s for sure. Oh my god. Yep, that's 2 more 8/8s, so there'll be 3 of them out. It's not looking great. And they have drawn over half their library, so I would not be surprised if they have a Selective Snare to go ahead and bounce their Steel Overseers back. That would be disastrous. That might even just be lethal this turn. That would be if they could bounce everything. I guess this is a mirror, so they could bounce these 3. Because Selective Snare can only bounce things of a certain creature type, so they couldn't bounce our mirror. They do have the Selective Snare. We'll go ahead and get as many counters on our Palladium Mirror as we can, but it'll have to chump block, because they can send in with 3 8/8s. So, if they attack with everything, that is lethal. But if they just send in the 8/8s, I can chump block 1 and win, maybe? But nope, there's the Volcanic Salvo as well. So we are incredibly dead. And when I said we could win maybe, I meant we could survive maybe. That was a very, very bold assessment to pretend I had any chance of winning after the triple 8/8s hit the board. Alright, so that is going to be our first game. It was against that blue-red deck, and I would agree, this does seem like a ridiculous deck. I'm going to go ahead and give them the scoop now. Because it does seem like they are toying with their food a little bit there. I was already dead off the lethal attack, and they decided to keep casting Frantic Inventories, so I wouldn't be surprised if they were just going to spit out some more 8/8s while I waited for that combat damage to hit me. I'd rather just get into the next game. Alright. So here we are, in a new game. Our opening hand's pretty great. I have to assume the more Steel Overseers, the better, because they will all just feed into each other. Opponent starts with a mountain. And by the way, the special lands in this set are the Planeswalker-themed lands. You can actually get them in the Jumpstart boosters that are based around that Planeswalker, or I think you can get the card style. I'm not 100% for sure, but I know there's a card style bundle for each Planeswalker as well. It might include the basic land. Looks like we're against the blue-red deck again, so hopefully this isn't the kind of thing where the format has just been decided, and so everyone is playing blue-red. That would be pretty sad, because that would just make the event pretty boring. So, if I play against nothing but blue-red today, then I may just decide not to do another one of these videos tomorrow. Because it may be a bit of a repetitive workshop. However, we're only 2 games in. That's a very small sample size. Hopefully we can play against some of the other decks in a bit. We're just gonna keep working on the Overseers. Again, Selective Snare just seems way too good, now that I'm thinking of it, because that's just kind of perfect for this format against any of the other decks. Because I'm thinking, like, I have to form these Steel Overseers, I have to get them large enough to win in combat against multiple 8/8s. And if I spend all my time doing that, I spend all my time and mana doing that for literally only 4 mana now, no matter how big the Steel Overseers are. Or I guess 5 mana. No, a Goblin Electromancer would make Selective Snare 1 cheaper, so yeah, for literally only 4 mana, they could bounce my entire field back to my hand, even if these were all like 10/10s or something at this point. I think that would be the one thing that 2 games in, I already think I might change about this format. I probably would not throw Selective Snare into that deck. It already seems really good, as you can see by us getting comboed out already. Yep, and there's another blue mana that'll be another Frantic Inventory. That'll be 2 more 8/8s if they do that, or they just Volcanic Salvo. 2 of our Overseers. It's a pretty rough deal. Now we're left with 2 3/3s against 2 8/8s and a 2/2. I don't think there's a way to come back from this one. Because, again, with 15 copies of Frantic Inventory, they are guaranteed to have at least like 4 more 8/8s next turn. So I'm actually just going to scoop them up right now off that game. We just don't have a way to make our blockers big enough, fast enough, and even if we do, with Frantic Inventory only costing them 1 blue mana at that point to draw 5 or 6 cards, they're incredibly likely to just draw into another Volcanic Salvo or Selective Snare anyway. So we'll head into another round. See if we can play against someone who's just playing for fun like me, who wants to try out all the decks. And it's a Steam Vents from our opponent, meaning they are also on the blue-red Frantic Inventory deck. This video may end up being a bit of a PSA about how unbalanced this event is, but we'll see. Again, you know, 3 games is a small sample size, and maybe the Artifact deck is just the weakest of all of them. Either way, it's the one I want to play, and you only need to win 1 game. And it's completely free, so I'm still going for it. They'll have to really beat me down to get me to play this blue-red deck to get my win. There's the Ominous Seas. Alright, we'll get a counter on our guys. Play Mirror and Steel Overseer. I'll drop down 2 more Overseers. Send in the Palladium Mirror for 4 damage. At least we damaged our opponent this game. That's a bit of a change from previous. There's Frantic Inventory for 1 blue thanks to Goblin Electromancer. Puts Ominous Seas at 3 counters. The next Frantic Inventory will draw 3 cards, putting that at 6. So they do need to cast 2 more Frantic Inventory to spit out an 8/8. There's another Goblin Electromancer. Are they actually just passing turn here? Do they not have another Frantic Inventory in hand? That would be insane if they don't have another one. Okay, so Umori isn't even an artifact creature, so don't really think I need to put Umori out. I think I want to play the Great Henge, tap it, and a blue, tap this. Well, I want to wait to tap Steel Overseer until Quarter Monitor's on the board, so I will, there we go, full control mode, just so I know for sure I can do that. So resolve that, choose an Overseer, and now use this ability. There we go, now I'll get rid of full control. Okay, there's another Palladium Mirror. So they're at 16, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I attack for 10 if I just attack with all of these. I think I have to try to just aggro them out before they can make a bunch of 8/8s. I don't know. If I tap all these, I do just have some really big creatures, but I can really put some pressure on them. Again, if they have another Frantic Inventory in hand right now, if they were waiting to cast it till my turn, they still can't spit out an 8/8 here. Or they just take it all and go to 6. It's very nice for me. Very, very close. That would be so crazy if they just don't have another Frantic inventory. That'd be very unfortunate draws for our opponent. They did draw 4 Electromancer. No other Frantic inventory. So we did pull out the game there. We got the win. Whew. Well, that was scary. And, you know, I've literally only played against the blue-red deck, so I don't really know how good the other decks are, how they all stack up together, but I would say for sure there are several things that seem incredibly powerful about that blue-red deck. As I said before, Selective Snare is just going to be really good against all the decks, Volcanic Salvo just as an additional removal spell, and obviously the consistency with Frantic Inventory being the card that you have a ton of is kind of ridiculous because you're just always drawing most of your deck in every game, unless you're very unlucky like our last round opponent that just did not draw a third Frantic Inventory. Very unfortunate for them. But anyways, that is the win. Definitely earlier than I thought after the first 2 games, but later than I thought before I tried it at all, so nice little middle-of-the-road video here. So thank you all for watching the We Are Many workshop. I will see you again definitely on Thursday at the latest for Jumpstart. When Jumpstart hits Arena, I'm very excited about that. If you haven't heard, Jumpstart hits Arena on the Thursday update. The events will only cost 2,000 gold or like 400 gems, something like that. And it's a perfect casual limited format in terms of paying to play it and what you get for it. You get to keep all the cards you open up, and then it's literally you can play as much as you want. If you get 2 wins, you get a prize for your first win and a prize for your second win. But you just play as much as you want and then resign the deck whenever you want. But yeah, you just get like little random rare rewards for first and second win. You literally can't lose your way out of the event. It's an endless queue. So that'll be a lot of fun. I'm very excited about that. Kind of a more casual, limited format, but it looks really fun. So with that out of the way, I'd like to thank you all for watching, and as always, I will see you again soon for more Magic Arena content.